So, are you old enough to remember this one?
Wempus, if this package isn't in Peoria by tomorrow morning, it's your job.
Freeman, if this package isn't in Peoria by tomorrow morning, it's yours.
Simpson, if this package isn't in Peoria by tomorrow morning.
Harley, if this package is not in Peoria by tomorrow.
If more people knew enough to call Federal Express in a situation like this, it sure would save everybody a whole lot of grief. Hello, Federal. Federal Express. When it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight.
Probably not, but that's okay. It's an early example of messaging that balances both needs and wants. Wait a minute. Needs and wants, there's a difference? Absolutely, there's a difference. And in this video, we're going to talk about what each is, why those differences are important, why you have to focus on both. And at the end, I'll even, of course, give you suggestions for figuring out what it is your clients really want, in addition to what they need. So let's get started with the definition of needs. The easiest way to think about needs is what shows up on your invoice. So tax prep, cybersecurity monitoring, data, market data, event production, anything like that. Those are what you sell. That's why your business exists, and that's why people come to you. That's the needs you meet. But what do they want? Well, the easiest way to think about what they want is, how do they want to feel when they or after they have worked with you? Wait a minute, feelings? B2B? No. That's that consumer stuff.
Au contraire, mon frère.
Sorry, it is not just for consumer marketing. It is needed anytime that there is a human involved. And until AI starts to make all purchasing decisions, then you also have to think about what your clients want, not just what they need. Let me give you an example. Let's think about the car industry. Now, people buy cars so they can get from point A to point B, right? Okay. Picture a no-nonsense, pre-owned, works perfectly fine small car. Will that get someone from point A to point B? Yes. Yes, it will. What about a brand new, loaded luxury SUV? Will that get someone from point A to point B? Also yes. Yes, it will. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that that first car, that simple car, doesn't make a lot of people feel excited, doesn't make them feel like they belong to a certain group, doesn't make them feel proud of themselves. And that's why people gravitate towards cars, for example, that are more than just getting from point A to point B. Let's stick with the car analogy a little bit longer. So you might be saying, wait a minute, what about things like cost of ownership or resale value or safety? Those are things that that original car doesn't offer. Well, probably that's true. However, it's still more than just getting from point A to point B. And so we use these analytical drivers to justify our wants, to justify our emotional drivers. All right, think about it this way too. Think about hiring. So perhaps you have a social media manager position open. There's a lot of people who can do that. Not everyone, but a lot of people can do it. And let's say you have a couple candidates that are all equally qualified, but you gravitate towards one because, well, maybe they make you feel like, feel a sense of belonging because they went to your alma mater. Or maybe there's a bit of nostalgia because they remind you of you when you were that age. Now, here's where unconscious bias sometimes comes in, but that's a video for somebody else to make because I don't have nearly enough expertise to really do it. Anyway, my point is that needs and wants are something you need to think about constantly for a number of reasons. First of all, you want to make your customers happy, right? And if you can address both their needs and wants, that's going to do it. Second of all, if you can address their wants and their needs, that is a huge competitive advantage if your competition isn't. And another thing is, if your product is a little pricier, a little less convenient, a little more complicated, you might need that extra edge of an emotional connection to get them to pick you over someone else. Before we move on, however, I want to make one thing very clear, and that is that this is all about subtlety. In no world would I suggest you have copy like, when you go with us, you're going to be a big man on campus. Or if you don't go with us everyone's going to think you're just pretty and not very bright. No, 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 no. This is all about subtlety. This is all about feeling. And because it's about feelings, it's something they have to feel. We can't tell them. Classic case of show, don't tell. Here's another example in addition to the one that I started with FedEx, and that is the CRM platform HubSpot and their Grow Better campaign. Let's start with the need they're meeting. They are meeting customer relationship management software and marketing automation. That's what they do. Pretty simple, right? Well, do you realize how many options there are? I asked my AI buddy Claude to estimate, and he came back with 1,357. So clearly Claude does not understand what estimate means, but that's beside the point. But what's the want they're fulfilling? Well, through their research, they determined that their customers wanted to stop feeling like growth requires burning out your team, cutting corners, sacrificing your values. In other words, growth at all costs. So they created the Grow Better campaign. HubSpot repositioned their entire brand around one concept: that marketing leaders and founders were exhausted by this growth at all costs mentality. Their Grow Better campaign made a promise that resonated emotionally. You can grow without compromising what matters through customer testimonials, data-driven content, authentic storytelling. HubSpot positioned itself not as a software vendor, but as a partner for leaders who want sustainable, values-aligned growth. There are no stats specifically aligned with this campaign, but their SEC filings demonstrate that growth year on year certainly is not a problem for them. Okay, how do you find out what your customers want, not just what they need? All right, simple enough. Here are 5 examples of ways you can figure that out. First of all, social listening. There are a lot of programs out there where you can monitor the tone of what people are saying as well as what they actually are saying. So look for signs of what they really want, what they're feeling, what their frustrations are. If you can do the opposite of that frustration, there you go. That's a want you've met. So social listening is really powerful. Next is competitive messaging analysis. So look at your competitors. What are they saying? Read their case studies. What are their customers saying? How are they thinking about the wants of their customers, not just their needs? I'll put a link to our DIY messaging audit download in the comments, but we can do one for you as well. Interview your current happy and ideal clients. Ask them how they're using your product or service. Ask them what they're thinking about. Ask them how they feel when a project is done. That is the easiest way to get a connection, to understand what folks are talking about. And if you don't want to do that, ask your customer-facing staff about what they're hearing from your customers. Next, do some customer journey mapping. Think about every step from their consideration to buying to use, all of the different steps that they take when they go through their client lifecycle. Think about each one of those and then try to imagine what's going on in their lives at that same point. And that can help you find what they're actually feeling or what they want to feel. And finally, do a win-loss analysis. Every time you win a job or lose a job, think carefully about the conversations that went on. Think about what was said. Think about what wasn't said. And then try to understand what those wants were that you may have found or you may have missed. Okay, if I've convinced you and you're ready to shift your marketing to a balance of needs and wants, here's one way to get started. Think about your own needs and wants, both as a consumer. Let's say you're buying a car or you're going out to buy, you're going to Costco. Think about what you need and what you want in every single situation. And then think about the same thing the next time you make a B2B buying decision. What is it you need, but what is it you also want? And by thinking about how needs and wants affect us, we are better able to think about how they impact our clients. Okay, in the comments, I would love to know what you think about needs and wants. Is this resonating? Does it make sense? Or you could tell me who you think does a particularly good job with balancing needs and wants in their message. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll be back with more. In the meantime, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, tell all your friends. And of course, always stay on brand.